get that out for you. So the Friday night concert is December 6th. So this will be December 14 at 5 p.m. on the second Saturday of every DARP. The best seats get chosen by the paid participants, which are those that come to the program, and so they get the best seats, but the remaining seats can be chosen by anyone who decides to come, and that will be December 14 at 5 p.m. It's always a different concert depending on the musicians and who is available, but it's very, very inspiring. And studies have shown, going to a concert like that, like it was today as well, that the benefits on the brain can last up to 2 weeks afterwards. And so just one concert like that in 2 weeks can make a difference. And then Fernando also reminded me during the potluck, wanted to get the dates for you there. We did talk about the EQ Summit on managing relationships, March 13 through 16. It starts at a Thursday noon and goes to a Sunday noon. There's also continuing medical education. If you happen to be a nurse or a doctor, you actually get credits. We team up with Loma Linda University to give you those credits. A lot of therapists, psychologists, but also interested lay people as well. And it's always a highlight of the spring. And then last year we started something that's going to be very popular and also very inspiring. It's called EQ Camp for Kids. So this is an emotional intelligence week for kids, and some of the curriculum, highlights of the curriculum are used that we talked about this morning, but also a lot of other aspects, crafts, as well as music lessons. It's a combined music camp as well, so there's orchestra instruction, and if you know of any kids that play any musical instruments, or even if they don't, you can come. And there's also parenting classes as well on how to train emotionally intelligent kids and bring up emotional intelligent kids. So that week, we haven't advertised it yet, but if you're the first to enroll, you might want to book at the inn. So this is June 23, starts on a Monday, so you can come in on a Sunday. June 22, it would be June 23 through the 28th. It would end on a Saturday evening, and that way you could get back to where you're going on the following Sunday. So just some events to keep in mind, since Weimar is not too far away, to take advantage of that. Well, we're going to be talking about lifestyle therapies for depression and anxiety, and this has to do with, a lot of it actually has to do with the mental health benefits of spending time outdoors. And there's some benefits of fresh air that are significant. Fresh air contains negatively charged ions, particularly after a rainstorm like last night. Mark and I were up before daybreak this morning, and we're going on a hike, and the air was very fresh. It, after a rain like this, the sun hadn't even come up yet. It was just starting to get light, and we could see the cloud cover over the mountains, but as we got up higher on the hike, you could see actually above the clouds where the mountain peaks were sticking up over towards where the pinnacles were at. And fresh air, these negatively charged ions have been shown to improve learning and concentration, reduce anxiety, improve mood. And where do you find negative ions? A moving ocean surf. One of the advantages, you're not too far away from the ocean surf there in Monterey Bay. What is that? Is that an hour away from here? Yeah, about an hour away from there. If you go to, is it Point Logos? Lobos, Lobos, with those waves crashing in. It not only is beautiful, but you breathe in those negatively charged ions, and it's going to be helpful for your mental health. Waterfalls or moving water. What's the closest waterfall to Hollister? All right, not getting an answer. Oh, really? Is it that far away? Okay, they say the closest waterfall to Hollister is Yosemite Waterfalls. So how far is Yosemite away from you guys here? 3 or 4 hours. I would imagine there's a waterfall closer. We need to look that up. I know even in the Monterey Bay area, there may be some waterfalls on some of those streams that go into the ocean. But waterfalls, I know in Weimar there's like 70 waterfalls within just a 45-minute drive. And of course you can't get to all 70 at once, but it's a good bucket list to try to find a new waterfall every weekend and get out and enjoy that. After a thunderstorm, I know you don't get too many thunderstorms here, but the lightning itself actually charges the air with those negatively charged ions, and evergreen trees emit negative ions. Weimar is surrounded by evergreen trees, and there's a lot of evergreens on the campus since we're on the foothills of the Sierra Mountains there, and you can just breathe in that pine smell. By the way, I know the Christmas season is coming up, but one of the advantages of the live Christmas tree is when you walk into that room, you can smell that pine needle extract smell, and it's actually been shown to be mood enhancing. So it might be worth the extra price of a real tree. Green spaces and health. This was a study, very interesting study in Denmark, but since that's 100% of society there in Denmark is under the government health system, you can actually look at addresses and zip codes and diseases because 100% of people are under their, quotes, Medicare. And so you can see where the diseases are at, you can see the ages, and they found out that if you are living near green spaces, it's a 15 to 55% decreased risk of developing psychiatric illnesses in adulthood, depending upon the specific illness. And the green space effect is dose dependent. So the more green spaces, these are live spaces around, the less disease. It's been shown to enhance emotional intelligence. And spending at least 120 minutes a week in nature in this study also was associated with better health and well-being. So it's not a large amount of time, but 120 minutes. I think Mark and I spent close to 60 minutes this morning in nature already. So if it's, you only have 60 more to go per se. Adolescents who spend time in green spaces, so these are teenagers, have reduced stress, better emotional well-being, less depression, and improved mental health. There's something called NBIs now in the psychiatric literature called nature-based interventions. Improves depression and anxiety, improves stress control, reduces negative rumination, so you're not going to think so much on the negative automatic thoughts, improves your focus, improves your sleep, and induces more physical exercise. When you're outside in nature, you're much more motivated to get into it and exercise on the trails. And another advantage, I don't know if you've noticed, but when you're outside in nature, it's kind of hard to stare at a screen. In fact, you can't even see the screen when the sun is shining on it. It's so hard to see it. And so reduced use of technology out there. And then, of course, gardening has even more benefits. In fact, this year I was asked to go in January to Crowley, Texas, or around there, as there's an agricultural society in Adventism called Ad-Agra, and some of you in the agricultural world might know about that, and they want me to talk about the positive health effects of gardening and agriculture, which there's lots of evidence now for. But the more you garden, the less you're likely to suffer depression and anxiety. You will have a less body mass index, so it's easier to control obesity. Life satisfaction goes up as well. Increases your quality of life and increases your sense of self-worth as well, as you're able to help the ground in producing more fruits and vegetables at the end of the growing season, which has also been shown to help your dopamine levels in regards to harvest time. And of course, this also involves working with your hands in 3 dimensions. When you're working with your hands in 3 dimensions out in nature, you're actually stimulating the back part of your frontal lobe, so you get more frontal lobe circulation as well. And of course, it's one of the reasons why Weimar has an agricultural program. In fact, we even have classes on agriculture, and we have a little farm up there. We don't grow things as well as you do in the Sacramento Valley, because you go down a little bit at Weimar and it's granite. So because we're in the mountains there, but we notice here the topsoil. We get envious when we come to places like this in California, in the Sacramento Valley, when there's 26, 27 inches of topsoil and everything grows so readily here. But we are able to grow fruit trees. We are able to grow sweet potatoes. We're able to grow tomatoes. We're able to grow a number of different crops up there. And they sell readily in the grocery stores around. We call it Weimar Farms, and the grocery stores say everyone buys from Weimar Farms to help support the institution. Then the Japanese studied something called forest bathing. What is it? It's simply spending time in a forest, in nature. Researchers have found that walking for 2 hours in a mixed natural forest environment improved tension and anxiety, improved depression and dejection, improves less anger and hostility. It actually improves your energy level. You have less confusion, more clarity of mind. And forest bathing changes negative mood states to positive ones. And we have noticed this in our program. It's one of the reasons why Weimar is centered around 15 miles of trails. Actually, it's all on the Weimar property in mountain trails. And as we take the guests out in the trails, we notice that mood enhancement that occurs. We also have something in depression and anxiety recovery program called Farm Fun. And, you know, some of the guests, when they first come, farm fun. I'm paying all this money to be in this program, and they're making me go out and work in the farm. This doesn't sound like very fair. So on the front end of it, they're not necessarily too excited about it, but just 1 hour of out there working in the farm, and they come back, they're smiling, they're talking, they're really engaged in regards to what they've done and what has transpired, and we don't see that negative mood state persist after just 1 hour of out there in the aspect of doing some agricultural work. So why the mental benefits? In fact, even serotonin levels improve with forest bathing. And this was kind of peculiar to people. Why in the world is brain chemistry enhanced by going out and walking 2 hours in a mixed natural forest? The benefits go beyond the brain, however. It improves blood pressure in those with hypertension. In fact, I didn't mention this, but high blood pressure actually will shrink your brain quicker as you age. Cognitive decline goes along with high blood pressure when you age. This is why you want to control your blood pressure and make sure that it's nice and low as you age. And there's a lot of natural things that can help with that. It improves autonomic function. That's your parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. It also improves your immune system. Your ability to fight off even COVID was found to be more beneficial if you were out there walking in the forest. Now, the amazing thing that happened when the COVID outbreak occurred, I don't know if you noticed this, but right at Weimar, where we have 70 waterfalls close by, all the trails were shut down. Big signs, COVID pandemic, do not go on the trails. It's not permitted to walk on these trails, as if we were going to get COVID by going out there and walking in the trails, or maybe running against someone else who might have had the virus out there. And now we know that actually, if we would have done more trail walking, we would have done far better as far as COVID is concerned. And one of the advantages was the immune system. We'll talk about one of the other advantages as well. By the way, Weimar did not shut down our trails. We allowed the general public to come in and walk on our 15 miles of trails, and those trails became very popular because they couldn't go to any of the government lands where you could normally hike. Less respiratory allergies occur with forest bathing. Improved mood and stress. Improves your attention deficit hyperactivity disorder as well, and focusing. And also it improves your sense of awe, gratitude, and selflessness. So again, the question is asked, why so much benefits for just 2 hours going out in nature? What would you answer to that? Yes, in general, that's a good way of summarizing it. God is good, it's His nature. But, of course, the fresh air, the negative ions, the exercise that you're getting, that's beneficial. But there's another benefit that we now realize. It's the essential oils coming from the leaves of the tree that we breathe in that are especially healthy for the brain. So this is why going to your gym and doing exercises for 2 hours in the gym is not near as mental health enhancing as going outside. You'd actually be better to find a tree limb and do some pull-ups and things like that and be out there in nature where you can breathe those oils that come from the leaves of the tree than doing the inside work. And so some of those oils have actually been studied in randomized controlled fashion. One of those is Selexon. We'll talk about that, but Selexon is a molecule that comes from the lavender plant. It's actually what gives the lavender smell if you're walking through a lavender farm. Do they have any lavender farms around here? I would think they might. Since everything grows here, lavender would be one of the things that grows as well. But this oil has been studied, and it actually is a natural antidepressant. Whether you breathe it in or whether you swallow it, you can also take this oil and swallow it in an 80 milligram amount, and it's been shown to be helpful for depression. Another oil that's emitted by a citrus plant, bergamot, has been shown to be very beneficial. Sandalwood, so there's oils that even come from the wood in the forest that can be helpful. Sandalwood is one of those. Mint is another antidepressant agent, and so is sweet almond. And in fact, in our massage therapy program, when someone's getting a massage in depression and anxiety recovery, the massage therapist will actually use a sweet almond oil. So you're getting, triple benefit there. And by the way, what's being played in the background is harp music. At the same time, you're getting this massage, and then you have that sweet almond. So you're getting a triple antidepressant effect. And there's a lot of patients that want to pay more to get even more of that more often. And then notice pine needle extract shows up again as an antidepressant oil. For anxiety, Selexon has also been shown to be helpful for both depression and anxiety. Some have only been shown to be helpful for one and not the other. There's other oils that come from plants like yuzu, limonene, linalool acetate as well. So in regards to Selexon, this will be anxiety relieving without sedation, addiction, or frontal lobe suppression. Now, in today's world, what you have happening, particularly in California, if someone has anxiety and they want to control it, they're into trying CBD products and marijuana products. And you get a whole list of people that are now on this, particularly now that not only medical marijuana is allowed, but recreational marijuana was made legal in California in 2015. And then, of course, you can get benzos, which are anxiety relieving. A lot of people are on Xanax, Ativan, lorazepam, alprazolam, all of these benzos to try to help fill the GABA receptors and get them to be less anxious. But the problem with all of those that I've mentioned is they have a sedative effect, they have an addictive effect, in fact, highly addictive, benzos are, and by the way, marijuana is also very addictive, and all of these will also suppress your frontal lobe. Of course, alcohol is the classic frontal lobe suppressant, but so does marijuana, and so does the benzos. And this is the area of the brain that's most important to light up if we're going to get rid of depression and anxiety. So we'll see this on SPECT scans. When the frontal lobe gets enhanced, we're going to see depression and anxiety go down. So these agents that are used instead of the healthy agents, you know, Selexon only has benefits. In fact, it's been shown in test anxiety. There's some people that they can study well for the test, but then they get so anxious coming in to take the test that their mind races and they're not able to really problem solve during the test. And they do worse than what they were really prepared for. They were prepared to do better. And studies show that if you take a lorazepam pill, you'll actually feel better taking the test. You won't be anxious, but you'll do far worse than if you were anxious. Why? Because it suppresses the frontal lobe of your brain. And so it's not good for academics. But if you take Selexon beforehand, your scores go up over what they would have with nothing, because now your anxiety is being relieved and you're able to think better, and it's not a frontal lobe suppressant. And so, you know, amazingly, people are trying to they're not weighing it very well, but they think, okay, marijuana is not a great substance, but for me, I need it. And so I'm going to take it and recognize there might be some hooks or some unknown or even known risks, but I think the benefits outweigh the risks in my case. But you don't see people out there seeking for Selexon. Why? Because it only has benefits. Humanity is so narrow-minded. The things that only have benefits, they don't seem to have much of an interest in. The things that have benefits and risks, let me try that. And then they end up having a lot of issues. And so I wish, you know, there was a, you know, in our county, probably due to at least some extent the influence of Weimar University, we are in Placer County, in California. In Placer County, marijuana is illegal in recreational form. It's illegal to even grow it in Placer County. And one of the shops in Colfax, which is on your way to Lake Tahoe, because we have thousands of people coming from the Bay Area to Lake Tahoe on I-80 every weekend. And so that shop was really pushing hard for Colfax to legalize their sale of recreational marijuana. And there was a meeting there to have people present who are members of the Colfax zip code, which I have a Colfax zip code. And so I went to the meeting and presented. Did you know that marijuana will increase your risk of having a permanent psychosis by 8 to 12 times, particularly if you have a genetic background of schizophrenia or mania in your family history? So if you have the bad gene and you're using marijuana, schizophrenia and paranoia is almost a fate worse than death. And really, before anyone sells recreational marijuana, they should know whether they have that gene or not. Now, that cost for that genetic test is about $650. So I asked the shop owner, are you willing to give this test to these people to make sure that they don't have the gene for paranoia and psychosis and those sorts of things, because you could set them off? Well, he wasn't interested at all in providing that test for $650 before he sold his recreational marijuana. And so then I said, well, why not do something that will benefit their mental health without any of those risks, like Selexon? Oh, I've never heard of that. I said, it's actually a lot cheaper than marijuana. It's a lot more effective. And you know, afterwards, he didn't even ask me about it or where he could get it from. So they're, once again, they're interested in selling things that are, and I understand the business model. If you can find something that's addictive to suppress someone's frontal lobe, it's a good business, because they come back for it. It's addictive. And their frontal lobe is so suppressed, despite the fact it's harming them terribly, they still can't stop using it. And so it's a great business, and of course it's one of the reasons why our country has legalized it. It's really made this big mistake. I don't know what's going to happen with the new administration, but the federal government still has wise laws against the use of marijuana. You know, and I don't know why the federal government is turning a blind eye to all these states that are legalizing it, but why do you think they're legalizing it? Do you think they know that it's not good for humanity? Oh yes, they know it's not good, but why are they legalizing it? Because they want to tax it. And if it is illegal, it is sold under, you know, in the black market, and you can't tax things in the black market. So their idea is these people are going to use it whether it's legal or not, so let's give more money to our educational system, and let's pay the teachers more. And they promise all of these things that don't ever happen when they use it as a way of taxing. But you know, interestingly, at that same meeting I was at in Colfax, I was proud of our police department showing up. And they had done their studies, and they said, you legalize this, and we're going to have to double our police force because crime is going up, and theft is going to go up, and unemployment rates are going to go up. And when people aren't working, they're into mischief a lot of times. And so are you willing to recognize the increased expenditure that this is going to be for the rest of society? And so they came and testified as well, as did others who had personal stories of how it had ruined people in their family, the recreational marijuana, and just taken a good, productive person and turned them into someone who was very unproductive. And so I would encourage you to seek for alternative means. I know in an audience this size, I'm just basing it on statistics. I don't know any of you personally other than I've met your pastor. But I know that in a group this size in California, there's multiple people here that are using CBD products. And by the way, a lot of people say, well, CBD, that's the good stuff, right? We're not using the THC. Well, you can't use CBD without getting THC. How do I know that? Because I'll do a urine drug test on someone who thinks they're just taking CBD and the THC lights up in their urine. You can't get all the THC out of it. And the marijuana products today have far more THC than the hippie generation that I grew up in. Even that marijuana wasn't good. But the THC levels are so high, you can't get it out of there. And that's the part that produces the paranoia, the psychosis, the hook, the addiction, the changes that take place. And it's just not worth it. Let's go for things that are going to help us without causing harm. So, as mentioned, Selexon has also been found to have an antidepressant effect, increases serotonin release, and extracellular brain serotonin levels go up. So there's more serotonin in the synapse there as well. Even smelling it helps, but it's most effective and predictable when taken orally. So I tell people that are into marijuana, why not go for something that has all the benefits of the marijuana you're using and none of the risks? And then they're interested in potentially trying this out, particularly since it's cheaper, because it will have the benefits without the risks. Now, something just as simple as deep breathing has been shown to relax the body. It oxygenates the brain, so your O2 saturation will go up. It helps prevent respiratory infections by deep breathing. A lot of respiratory infections are actually due to little tiny collapses of the lung from just us not breathing deep periodically. It's best to actually do some deep breathing exercises almost every hour on the hour, particularly when you're sedentary. It induces sound sleep, improves your mood as well. Proper diaphragmatic breathing focuses on slow, deep breaths that rely on the diaphragm. Now, Dr. Fernando Martin is not our vocal instructor. He's married to a vocal instructor at Weimar University. We also have a very exceptional vocal instructor that's there right now. But whenever you're learning voice lessons, you're going to learn about proper diaphragmatic breathing. So I don't know, would I put you on the spot if you came up here and told them about diaphragmatic breathing? All right, he's going to try it out here. If not, you would have an unprofessional like me telling you how to do it, which I'd be glad to, but go ahead. So we should have you stand up because we should have you all participate in this. So one of the things we're going to want to do, Fernando, since I haven't done this with you before, is we're going to show a study that shows that if you take one breath every 15 seconds for 15 minutes, it will improve your mood throughout the entire day. So just 15 minutes of a deep breathing exercise. So, and sometimes we call that boxed breathing, where you're holding your breath a little bit during those 15 seconds, and then you hold it when it comes out. So a total of 15 seconds is our goal from the start of one breath to the start of the other. So, but anyways, go ahead.
So you might want to stand up. There's actually the little song for the kids for the EQ camp that talks about being on your toes. A lot of us, we're on our heels, and we're like this, so your lung is collapsed. You want to be on your toes. Also, deep breathe is not enlarging your chest, it's actually enlarging the area below your belly button. Right? That's your diaphragm is going to come out. It will push the things down, and it will make your belly bigger. But that's how your lungs are going to actually expand by breathing. That's why boxers wear the belt, because they actually do compression breathing, which is deep breathing to be able to release their punches. It's a terrible thing, but they're doing it right, I guess. The wrong thing right. But anyways, would you like to count? So we're going to breathe down there. If you've never done it before, it might feel a little bit funny. But we're going to take a slow, we're going to try to take it slow, 15 seconds. Also, another thing, we need to release the old air in our lungs. It's usually full of the old air that is not rich in oxygen. So the first thing we want to do is to, and then we breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4, into your belly button. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Feel like a pressure against this lower part. Now we're going to release. And relax your shoulders. I spoke, so I lost all my breath. But yeah, when you deep breathe, you need to breathe into your diaphragm. Actually, Ellen White talks about that. And that's how they're able to speak in churches without any sound system for 3,000 people, because they're also be speaking out of the diaphragm.
All right, let's try it again.
Okay.
We're gonna do 15 seconds.
So
here.
release all your air.
Release all your air, all the way out. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Go ahead and hold it now, all the way in, and now let it out. 1, 2, 3, let it all the way out. And then you're ready to breathe back in again. And as you repeat that process, 15 minutes, 3 times a week is all you have to do it to have an antidepressant effect. And it will oxygenate you and help you actually throughout the entire day. So something very simple. You can go ahead and sit down. So deep breathing also prevents a common complication of anxiety. In anxiety, you have rapid shallow breathing. And the rapid shallow breathing can actually do some things physically that are harmful for you. So as he mentioned, maintain a good posture, take stretch breaks often, getting exercise whenever you can will also aid in proper breathing and maintain healthy lungs. So here was the trial. It was an 8-week trial. Breathing exercises, no more than 1 breath every 15 seconds or 4 breaths per minute, 3 days a week. Now, if you can do 3 breaths a minute and not be short of breath, that's good too. It doesn't have to be 15 seconds, but that's what should we say, the minimum is 15 seconds. So some people don't have as much lung capacity to do more than that, but if you can do 20 seconds, 3 breaths a minute, then that's great. Or even 2 breaths every 30 seconds. It improves your mood, anxiety, focus, attention, and even your cortisol levels improve. That means your adrenal glands are enjoying this, and they're benefiting. Another aspect of health is stimulating contrast baths, also known as hydrotherapy. Series of short repeated immersions in water alternating between hot and cold temperatures. It's used a lot in sports medicine, athletic training, and rehab settings as well. And it's been shown to increase blood flow and oxygenation to tissues. It decreases swelling and stiffness. We've had so many reports of individuals with chronic pain showing that their chronic pain basically goes away with hydrotherapy. We had one gentleman that came. He was in the military and had a helicopter accident. We were just speaking at aviation earlier today, since I'm an aviator and someone was asking me some questions about it. But a helicopter, if it's hovering at less than 500 feet and it loses an engine, there's nothing you can do. It is going down and you are either getting injured or you're dying. Now, if it's higher elevation than that, then you can put it into where you take the wind and make the wind move the rotor and then try to bring it into a soft landing. But if it's lower than that, it's called the dead zone. And he was in the dead zone, and the engine quit in the military, and so his entire spine collapsed, as a result of this. Tremendous pain. Had to have surgery to try to put it back together again, had all this chronic pain, and he said he never was pain-free since that time until he came to our program. He came for his mental health benefits, but he got tremendous physical health benefits by being in that hydrotherapy. He even stayed an extra week to get even more of that tissue swelling under control and stiffness. It promotes healing. It improves limb function and quickens recovery. And it also has a significant antidepressant effect. In our program, sometimes we call it nature's shock treatment. You know, the shock treatment for depression is where they induce seizures, and it's called electroconvulsive therapy, ECT, which is still used today, by the way, for refractory depression. And that has complications. You're going to lose memory of things that happened to you that you'll have no idea that it ever happened anymore. And so there are significant memory complications. But with this shock treatment, you don't have any risks, only benefits. Now, it's important as well, and this is something that we have to explain to people. Studies have shown it's very important for you to get the antidepressant effect that it be uncomfortably cold on the contrast. So it's not dangerously cold, but what? Uncomfortably cold. And many of the individuals that come to our program, they're not used to voluntarily doing anything uncomfortable, except for maybe self-harm to try to get their mind off of their emotional pain. So some of them are cutters, but they don't want to get into that cold water. And so that's one of the reasons why on that first night we teach them that song, I don't like it, I don't like it, it's okay, I can stand it anyway, I can stand it anyway, I'm all right, I'm all right. And so this actually will get to the point where at first they don't like it, but then they realize it's doing them such benefit that they don't want to miss out. And so we'll usually do this about twice a day. Some days we're doing it once a day. But they will notice a benefit. Why does it have to be uncomfortably cold? Because it's heat shock proteins. In fact, we end with the cold. We'll do hot, cold, 3 different times. Hot again, cold, and then hot, and then cold. And when we end with the cold, the heat shock proteins will heat up your own system, and in doing so, there's a nice antidepressant effect of that. So you feel far better, more energetic. And we've also noticed, we've also done schizophrenics, people that are severely mentally ill with schizophrenia, and they will do especially well in the cold water. In fact, we'll keep them in there longer. We don't keep anyone in there longer than 8 minutes, but for a schizophrenic, they'll actually like it to be in there that long. And after that 8 minutes, after it's over with and they start heating up, we will give them a phone to talk to their relatives, and they'll say, I haven't had a conversation with my son like this for 20 years. And this is just amazing. His mind is back. We haven't figured out how to be able to keep it there, though. You know, as the heat shock protein is working to get it up there, then unfortunately the schizophrenic type thoughts tend to return again. But we're working on it. In fact, we're developing a schizophrenia program, and we haven't come out with it yet. We need to have the right therapist there for that as well. In fact, the therapy for schizophrenia is to get the schizophrenic to recognize what is real and what isn't real, and not interact with the hallucinations. It's interacting with the hallucinations that make them worse. And so if they totally ignore their delusions and their visual hallucinations and auditory hallucinations, the brain actually does start to get better. But that's a process that we have to help them through. Light is also very beneficial regarding mental health. Bright light therapy has been shown to be an effective antidepressant. It's effective for treating seasonal affective disorder. Depression is more common this time of year, particularly after Christmas, with all those short days, but light therapy can prevent the seasonal affective disorder, gives results equivalent to SSRIs for non-seasonal depression. In fact, studies have clearly shown light therapy versus Prozac, they both work equally well, but light therapy works quicker. It'll work within less than a week, where the Prozac will take more than a week before it starts benefiting you. It works best for those who are also fatigued or have a tendency to eat or sleep too much, and it also works well for partum and postpartum depression. We see a lot of postpartum depression. or a lot of hormonal depression where women get more depressed before their period. And one of the ways of preventing that is light therapy. In fact, after a woman has a baby, she's going to have a circadian rhythm hit introduced to her because she has to wake up every 2 hours and feed that baby, so she's going to tend to be sleep deprived. And studies show if they get a light therapy at the same time every morning, like 6 a.m., and then go back to sleep if they need to catch up on sleep, they won't get the postpartum depression. And so that light can prevent that. It also works very well for bipolar depression. Bipolar depression can be some of the most severe depression, and the light therapy actually enhances that as well. And it also gives results more quicker than medication in bipolar disorder. But it can be used with or without medicine, so you don't have to choose whether it's a medicine or not. If you're on a medicine, you can also benefit from light therapy. As far as the intensity, if it's white light, you need 2,500 lux for 2 hours to benefit, 5,000 lux for 1 hour in the morning, or 10,000 lux for 30 minutes. 10,000 lux is pretty bright. You normally have to be outside in order to get 10,000 lux unless you're getting a medical grade light box. And so we recommend that medical grade light box. And what we have found out, let's see if I have it here, well, I'll tell you here in a minute, is we can do less intensity if it's just blue light. There it is, blue light, which is 450 to 400 nanometer wavelength of 100 to 1,000 lux, is equivalent to 10,000 lux of white light. And that's because we now realize it's the blue light from the white that's helping. White is full spectrum, but it's the blue that's particularly helping. And so we can get it a lot dimmer and benefit. So now we even have these light glasses. Anyone that has insomnia or has problems with going to sleep or staying asleep, the first thing we do is to reset their circadian rhythm by getting the blue light at the same time every morning for 30 minutes. So we'll have glasses that emit that 450 nanometer wavelength, which is actually the same wavelength that you get from the blue sky on seasons like today. And of course, you can't get that blue light at 6 a.m. in the morning this time of year at all. And so by getting that 30 minutes, you can walk around with it. The blue is still there, and it can be very beneficial. In our program, actually, our day starts at 5:30, so they're doing their light at 5:30. And we actually knock on their door and make sure we see the whites of their eyes and get their glasses going, because in 7 days, they're going to start sleeping a whole lot better. 90% of our patients have sleep problems that come to us, and within 7 days, those sleep problems start to go away or completely go away because they've reset their circadian rhythm with light. It's light through the eyes, through the suprachiasmatic nucleus in the brain that sets our circadian rhythm. So if it's not glasses, it's placed 1 to 2.5 feet away, usually 18 inches, and it's offset by 20 to 45 degrees. You don't have to look at it directly. It's the rods in the retina that actually stimulate this. So the rods are your more peripheral vision, so we have it coming this way, and you can read something straight ahead, fine, and it will still benefit you from getting that ambient light in on the side. And there are some other benefits that have been shown. Researchers found that men who are exposed to an hour of bright light first in the morning experienced an increase in luteinizing hormone. Luteinizing hormone is at the base of your brain. It's where your pituitary gland is at. The pituitary puts out LH. LH influences reproductive hormones in both men and women. Increases in LH in men drive up what? Testosterone. Now, I don't know if you watch TV, but if you watch TV, you've probably seen a lot of racket regarding men and their low T levels. And the low T levels, of course, can result in depression, it can result in fatigue, it can result in lack of mental clarity. And so men are getting their testosterone checked, and then they're getting on the racket of the testosterone shots or the pellets. Often the doctor does not tell them, we give you testosterone shots, your testicles will shrink. They'll even put out less testosterone. And once you get off those testosterone shots, the testicles are so shrunken, it'll take them a year before you get anywhere close to the testosterone that you put out before. And so it's a good dependent mechanism to keep them coming back to the doctor and keep this expense going. And then their testosterone is fluctuating. It's getting so high right after the shot that they get angry at their wife over the littlest stuff because it's way too high of testosterone level. And then it sinks down low before the shot in the next week or two, and then you do that again. And what these men aren't told, unfortunately, is if they would just get a blue light box for 1 hour in the morning, it would double their testosterone output because their brain would be telling their testicles to produce more instead of just getting a shot and decreasing the testicular ability. And so there's other things that can increase it as well. Many men are unaware of this fact, but we've seen this occur in many cases where they've actually been diagnosed with hypogonadism from low testosterone, and the light therapy solved it. Studies have shown LH also helps with depression. It improves libido, and it has a muscle building and strengthening effect. Now, on TV commercials, they're also advertising to men Viagra, Cialis, all of those sorts of things for erectile dysfunction. And those drugs do not improve libido. They don't have a muscle building and strengthening effect. They're just working on the end organ. But there's far better ways of taking care of ED than taking those drugs, and this is one of the ways of helping with the ED. It not only helps men, it also helps women. LH will also be stimulated in women, and when LH goes up, those with long and irregular menstrual cycles will actually have their menstrual cycles regularized, and they'll be able to ovulate regularly again. The average American, the last time this study was done was 2019, which was pre-COVID. Average American spends over 90% of their time indoors. In fact, it was 91%. Do you think that's gotten better or worse with COVID? It's gotten worse. And there's something that is particularly concerning about this. And everything that we've talked about so far, being outdoors in nature, getting the negative ions, getting the light, getting all those things that nature provides, the essential oils, but there's something that's also been greatly overlooked as far as the benefits of the sun, and that is infrared light. Half of the photons, if we were to go out there today, we'll have a little break here coming up. I would encourage you to go out there. If you go outside in the sun, half of those photons that you get, you can't see as far as light. It's infrared light. Now, it's near infrared. Near infrared is between 850 nanometer wavelength all the way to 2,500 nanometer wavelengths. So average of about 1,500 nanometer wavelengths. And infrared light has been shown to be very beneficial to the brain and body. So near-infrared portion of natural sunlight stimulates an excess of antioxidants in each of our healthy cells. The most potent antioxidant known to mankind is melatonin. You make more melatonin when you have light in the daytime. You will make it at night. But before, we only thought it was made at night primarily because we could measure it in the bloodstream. That's called circulatory melatonin. The pineal gland puts out melatonin in response to darkness. But we didn't know until recently that melatonin can be made inside the cells and stay inside the cells. Melatonin protects your mitochondria from burning out. Mitochondria are the energy-producing aspects of your brain and your muscles. And infrared penetrates your skull. It actually penetrates it a few centimeters. It penetrates your skin. It can even penetrate your clothes. get into those cells and produce intracellular melatonin to protect those mitochondrial energy plants from breaking down. And the cumulative effect of this antioxidant reservoir enhances the body's ability to rapidly deal with changing conditions throughout the day. So circulatory melatonin is called the hormone of darkness, but intracellular melatonin is the hormone of daylight. And so what are the benefits of near-infrared light? Studies have shown it boosts metabolism. It prevents, as mentioned, it prevents your mitochondria from burning out. It increases your energy. Cognitive performance enhancement occurs. And that's been shown even post-TBI. If you've had a traumatic brain injury, the most important thing is for you to be outside and get infrared light. It reduces PTSD symptoms. It reduces inflammation within the body. A lot of mental health conditions are due to an inflammatory condition of the brain, or a lot of physical health conditions are due to too much inflammation. And the infrared light is a natural anti-inflammatory. It's also a potent pain reliever, and so it can help reduce chronic pain significantly. And so this is one of the benefits, and by the way, you get infrared light from sunup to sundown as long as there's not clouds that it's going through. Now, clouds have a lot of moisture, and clouds will absorb the infrared light. So yesterday, with all that rain, you weren't getting infrared out there. But today, you can get infrared light, and it even comes off the leaves of the trees. But buildings will actually absorb the infrared. So if you're in New York City, you're not getting infrared from reflection off of those. Now, one other thing that's been shown to be very beneficial is we mentioned infrared helps mitochondria. It prevents the too much of an inflammatory response. We have now found out that the best therapy for COVID, if you had COVID, was getting outside and getting infrared light. I don't know if you remember, but when COVID was going around the world, everyone was fearful of Africa because Africa has no hospitals with ICUs in most of the towns and cities. And so they don't have ventilators. And they said, COVID is going to wipe out the continent of Africa because we don't have a medical system. COVID went to Africa, and Africa did far better than America. It did far better than China. Why did it do so well? Those people are outside. And that infrared was helping them significantly. So what we should have been done under COVID is getting everyone away from their screens and outdoors. And we would have had a far different outcome. By the way, we should have known this from the flu pandemic. During the flu pandemic, studies were done in hospital rooms. And back in those days, the hospital rooms were double occupancy, at least, sometimes 4 people in a hospital room. And they found out the person who was next to the window survived the flu. The person that was away from the window died from the flu. And as a result, the hospitals after that were built even had courtyards in the middle where you could have windows for natural light to get into those hospital beds. Now hospitals are built with windows that block out all of the infrared light. And so you can't get any infrared in these hospital systems. So we had one of our physicians that lives at Weimar. He actually works at an ICU in Sacramento. His name is Dr. Mitchell. But Dr. Mitchell was treating a lot of COVID in downtown Sacramento. And he told the nurses, we have got to get these patients outside. They said, you're crazy. Outside, where are we going to take them? Well, there was a porch on the 3rd floor. ICU's on the 3rd floor of Sacramento Sutter, or is it Sacramento Kaiser? I think it's Sacramento Kaiser. And so it's Kaiser system, and there was a 3rd floor that had a porch. And so the nurses weren't doing it, so he'd come in the morning, and he'd get extension cords, and he'd start wheeling them outside. And the families loved it because they weren't allowed into ICU, and they could actually talk to their relative now. They would come down below and they would talk to their relative that was out there on the porch. And what we found out is every one of Dr. Mitchell's patients survived COVID that got outside. That infrared light turned out to be far more important than the remdesivir, than all of the other things that we were giving, because it was helping those mitochondria to be protected. It was preventing that big inflammatory response. And so sunlight is far more important than just vitamin D. We knew vitamin D was important. In fact, that's one of the things that helps COVID. The vitamin D prevents that overreaction as well. But we know that the infrared portion of things, in fact, we've known this for a while, because first we used to think vitamin D was ultimately important, because if you're not taking vitamin D supplements and you're outside in the sun, your vitamin D levels are very indicative of how much sun you're getting. And so it looked like that sunlight was protecting you from cancer, from infections, from all sorts of things. So we thought, well, let's just boost people up with vitamin D supplements. Vitamin D supplements helped, but not near as much as if they were getting vitamin D from the sun. And it wasn't that the vitamin D was better from the sun. Vitamin D is vitamin D. The difference is from the sunlight they were getting infrared light. And that infrared light can't be, you can't take a pill to simulate infrared light. You have to actually be exposed to the light. Fortunately, they are now making lights that emit the 1500 nanometer wavelength. And so there are certain cases where we've used this. One happens to be a patient. I get phone consults from often all over the country and all over the world. But this was a phone consult in a 7-year-old girl, I think she was. She might have been 8. And she was having seizures up in British Columbia, Canada. And as I was taking a history from her, the parents were very concerned because it's a Canadian system is a government healthcare system. And so you have to listen to the government healthcare provider. And the government healthcare provider for her seizure says she has to be on benzos. So they were going to put her on benzos, which is an addictive agent, frontal lobe suppressant, at age 7 or 8. You can imagine the family being informed wasn't too excited about that, and they said, isn't there any other option? He says, I'm not going to give you any other option. You've got to take the benzos. If the benzos don't work, then I'll give you another option, but you've got to take the benzos. And so they were calling me all concerned. Is there anything else we can do naturally? And first of all, I gave them a little clue. I said, what you can say is she's old enough to refuse and say, my daughter refuses to take these benzos. And so I'm not going to force it down her when she's refusing. And so that's an option for you. But as I got a history, she was only having seizures from October on. And she was outside a lot in the sunlight in British Columbia in the summertime. And she wouldn't have seizures. After April, her seizures would go away. And I said, okay, let's get an infrared LED light that emits 1500 nanometer wavelength, and let's shine it on her brain 15 minutes twice a day. And they did that, and she had not one seizure and not on one seizure medicine that whole winter. In fact, they said we only did it once a day. We didn't do it twice a day. When I followed up, I said, you're doing it twice a day? Oh, was it supposed to be twice a day? I said, yes, it was. Well, we only did it once a day, and we still haven't had a seizure. So just that 15 minutes of that infrared light produced significant benefit. And it can also benefit the brain, particularly if it has to do with inflammatory conditions of the brain. So we have these lights available at Weimar during our program for those that need them. Many times people are wondering about, what about the sunburns? We don't want you to get a sunburn. And here's how you can see if you're going to get a sunburn. If the shadow is shorter than you, and you're out there for more than 30 minutes and you have fair skin, you might get burned. And so on a day like today, you go outside, you look at your shadow is going to be longer than you are, and you're not going to get burned. And infrared happens from sunup to sundown. So you don't need to be putting sunscreen on or things like that unless the shadow is shorter than you are. That's more direct sun that's coming down. And, I was skiing in Tahoe on January 1st a couple of years ago when it was a bright, sunshiny day, beautiful up there in Tahoe. And the person taking us on the gondola was frightening everybody in the gondola. Did you bring your sunscreen? You're going to get burned today. You're going to, you need to get into that shop, get that sunscreen. And I knew on January 1, the shadow never gets shorter than you are. It's not going to burn you on January 1, even in bright sun. And all these people were buying sunscreen and wasting all of their money and time because it wasn't necessary. But in February and March skiing, you better watch out because it could happen. So any questions? I think we've gone a little more than an hour. We want to give you a good break. Any questions about what I presented, and then we'll open it up this evening in regards to general things. But let's just keep it to be related to the presentation I've given, if possible.
My question's about blue light. And so I hear and read a lot about screens, being damaging, and the light and the blue light. At what point, is that the same blue light you're talking about receiving in the morning?
Blue light in the morning is healthy. Blue light in the evening is not healthy. It will reduce your melatonin peak at night. So we want to have that blue light in the morning. It's okay to have it later on in the day as well, but not in the evening. So as far as having blue light blockers and things like that, that would be great after 6 o'clock at night and avoiding any blue light at that time. But yeah, great question.
What about windows? People, and I'm wondering why that ended. If it's, I was wondering about using blue windows. That used to be a common way.
Yeah, blue windows is not necessarily going to give you the 450 nanometer wavelength. That's like stained glass. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah. I see. Yeah, I can't really comment on that per se, but in general, you want to make sure that the wavelength is actually coming from the light itself. Between 450 and 490 nanometers is the magic part that will increase our serotonin levels and improve our circadian rhythm in the morning. Yes.
Thank you. I heard you speak about forest bathing, and I know a trend right now that's coming up is grounding. And how do you connect both, and what's your thought on that?
Yeah, so there is something with the grounding in regards to the magnetic field. And so grounding is when you are walking on planet Earth with bare feet. And so that's what's called grounding. And there are some studies indicating that there is some benefit in regards to that. It's actually a negative electronic field as well that's on the Earth, and some aspects have more so than others. But, the question is, if you wear socks, can you benefit from the grounding? And of course, now they have, where you don't have to go outside, you just have a platform that has that same negative charge that you can walk in your house with, or, put your feet on that house in order to get that. And so those are called grounding mats to do that, and they're charging quite a bit for that. In general, it's not a bad idea to be outside and to, even potentially in bare feet, there may be a greater advantage. Now, you don't want to injure your feet. You don't want to be walking on rocks that cause, infections and things like that. So you'd want to be careful about that. But the preliminary studies do show that there is some benefit to that. Yes.
Hello. Are you aware of the ice plunges that people seem to be kind of the trend right now because people are working a lot of hours or they're sleep deprived? And I know my son works in technology and he actually bought one of the things where you can do the plunge.
Yeah,
And I'm concerned about that. Is that,
polar plunge. So yes, you can have, in fact, in Lincoln, not too far away from Weimar, they manufacture polar plunges, and you can actually dial in the temperature of where it's going to be, and it will cool down. So once again, it needs to be uncomfortably cold, but not dangerously cold, and you don't want to spend too much time in there. But it actually does stimulate the immune system. It'll improve your monocytes. It'll help you in a number of ways, but you need to be wise in regards to how you're utilizing it.
thank you.
Yes.
You mentioned earlier about the Selexon,
Yes.
and it sounded a lot like Celexa.
Spelled differently.
So
Celexa is
I
with a
just
C.
wondered if there was any
No.
relationship, correlation with the ingredient.
Yeah, I don't know. The Celexa is actually a trade name. It's not a molecule name. The molecule name for Celexa is called citalopram. And so the company named it Celexa, and maybe they were trying to simulate the Selexon name. I don't know. I haven't talked to the manufacturers, but it's similar enough that it made me wonder as well. Were they trying to take advantage of the natural molecule Selexon to market their product?
Okay, no.
But it's actually spelled differently. If it was too similar, the US government probably would not have allowed them to trademark it as Celexa. So they spelled it with a C,
Right.
C-E-L, and this is S-I-L. So it was different enough that the trademark people allowed them to get by with it.
And so what do you think about antidepressants that are atypical, like Wellbutrin or some of the others?
Yeah, so as I mentioned last night, it really depends on what the person's brain chemistry is like and epigenetics. In many cases, we have found out we don't need to use Wellbutrin to increase, Wellbutrin is actually increasing dopamine synaptic activity and norepinephrine synaptic activity. It's not doing really anything to the serotonin side of things. And often we find an imbalance between norepinephrine and dopamine, where there's too much norepinephrine, causing the anxiety, and not enough dopamine, so you don't enjoy the usual activities of life. And so Wellbutrin is going to raise both of those. And what we'd like is to be able to balance that out. So when we find that condition, we have a supplement called Brain. It used to be called Brain Balance, but there was a company who had come out with a learning program for kids called Brain Balance, and so they asked us not to use that term, even though it wasn't used in that way. So we just voluntarily shortened it to Brain, and that has natural ingredients to help bring down the norepinephrine and bring up the dopamine. And we have found a far more better success in using natural approaches than potentially reaching for Wellbutrin in many cases. Now, if they're low on both, then Wellbutrin might be an appropriate selection. All right, well, you've been a very attentive group. Maybe we have one more, and then we'll, if you have any more questions, we can ask them at the end.
Yes, I don't know how to frame this, but individuals that are on the autism spectrum, would light therapy help in some ways? Maybe to, let's say that their medication is increased or changed because they have seizures quite a bit, have increased, so they put them on new medication. Also, when they're not sleeping at night, and then they seem to have seizures more so.
I think it'd be worth a try, particularly the infrared portion that we're talking about. Now, if they're having sleep problems, I would recommend the blue light as well. In fact, right now we're working with a manufacturer out in Arkansas to get a blue light and an infrared light at the same time, or where they could switch it or use both, because I think that'll be useful for a lot of individuals that don't have access to the sun or live in cloudy areas where you can't really get the infrared light. one of the reasons why they have a lot more depression in Washington and Alaska and Oregon is because of all the cloud cover they have over there, and they're not able to access that infrared light. And so in regards to autistic individuals, fortunately, infrared light has no harm noted to it. And so there's been no reported harm whatsoever for near-infrared light, and so it's certainly worth a try to see if it might help with the seizures or some of the other autistic aspects. All right, time to take a break and get a little bit of infrared outside.
But before we take a break, we want to give out our gift, which is Brighten Up Breakfast. Mouth-watering and nutritious recipes to vitalize your day by Erica Medley, Dr. Medley's wife. So whoever wins it, make sure to invite me over for breakfast the day after. So mix those up good, Patty, and let's see who. So I hope you're registering, and we're going to have one last gift at the last presentation too. So I hope you're registering.
Selena Munoz.
Selena Munoz, can you raise your hand? Okay. Congratulations. God bless you. Dr. Medley, when should we start again? 10 minutes?
Let's make it 15.
15 minutes. Okay, in 15 minutes, we're going to start back up again. Let's take a walk around the building, go outside and get some fresh air. God bless.